Penn State's depth chart did get some more answers leading up to Nevada, but there are still some pressing questions that remain.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked on to Penn State football, and as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show, credentialed media member for both Penn State football, Penn State wrestling. The season is back. Penn State football is officially back, not just college football. This is going to be an additional pregame show, pregame analysis leading up to the game against Nevada. So we're going to talk about players to watch against the Wolfpack, but address some of these questions that remain about the depth chart. Go position by position, starting with quarterback, working all the way to special teams, and, discuss the positions. Hey, we know this is a certainty, but over here, not entirely sure. And this is something that might not be solved until probably by Oregon, if I'm being honest with you. Friendly reminder, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Thank you to the everydayers for making us a part of your regular routine. So quarterback, one of those positions that got some clarity. Drew Aller's the starter. We know this. But who was going to be the first backup to Drew Aller? Well, Ethan Grunkemeyer is officially QB2. James Franklin named him the backup in his press conference. Some important context, though. This is a week-by-week decision. So far, this is just for game one. Jaxon Smolik is going to be QB3, and I would not be surprised if both quarterbacks get into the game. You don't have to worry about red shirt, right? Grunk's going into year 2, Smolik's in year 3. But these two players are going to be in a QB battle for probably the entirety of the season. Next off season, who knows if it even extends past spring. But James Franklin, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, has to be strategic with how he handles Grunkemeyer and Smolik, because then if one transfers out, you might be jeopardizing your future at quarterback going into next season. So that's why this is the way it is and why he's not outright naming somebody. And I will give it that the competition is probably still close, that there's not much that separates Grunkemeyer and Smolik. But then if Grunk is going to be QB2, he has to really separate himself. And I think he can. And I think a lot of Penn State fans do as well. It's also a testament to Smolik that he's keeping this battle close, that he's keeping the race close to a point where Penn State isn't confident beyond a week-by-week basis to do that. That's not just James Franklin. That's Andy Kotelnicki. That's Danny O'Brien. Everybody involved in those discussions. Move to running back. That's a position that really doesn't have clarity after Singleton and Allen. So you have Singleton as the 1A, Allen as the 1B. Those guys are co-starters, but that's why RB3 is so important going into this season. Franklin has said it. Their RB3 is going to be an important position, not because they're the backup, but because they're going to rotate in. Andy Kotelnicki is going to get creative with 2 running back sets. That's why both Singleton and Allen came back, not to be on the field one after another, no. Because they're going to play a lot together. You're going to see 20, 22 personnel. You're going to see 21 personnel, which means 2 running backs at the same time, potentially 1 or 2 tight ends. So after them, well, if everybody was healthy, if all things were equal at this point in time, and maybe I should give Cam Wallace a little more credit for where he's back, but I'm not exactly sure of his timeline, and we're not going to get that clarity immediately. However, Wallace, if he were 110%, I think he needs to get back up to game speed because he had a serious injury from a season ago. The fact that he's recovered to this point is honestly impressive. It's very surprising to me. Based on what we saw at practice, Quentin Martin would be the unofficial RB3, but like quarterback, this competition is going to carry on. And I think when Wallace really returns to true form, you're going to see him as that next running back up. But they're going to cycle in. Don't count out Quentin Martin just because of what I say here. Don't count out Corey Smith. I think Tyke Hayes and Jabri Wallace-Coleman, the true freshman running backs, still have some time. You don't need to rush them into it. But Penn State does have 5 legitimate options at running back. Obviously, some people are better than others, right? You want Singleton starting as opposed to Quentin Martin. But if you got to roll with Quentin Martin for a drive or two, he can be reliable. Same thing with Cam Wallace. This one is not going to be decided for a little bit, but Penn State really, like I said, doesn't have a bad option here. I think when Cam Wallace gets back to 110%, he's going to be the guy at RB3. Wide receiver, there is a clear path for all of them. We could have projected this we already did. We were projecting it much further out when they had all three transfers. Devonte Ross, Trebor Peña, and Kyron Hudson officially in the fold. Those are your three starters when they go three wide receiver sets. Kyron Hudson at the X, slot, the Y, Trebor Peña, at the Z, Devonte Ross. Backups are when it gets intriguing. Kobe Howard's going to be the backup X to Kyron Hudson. Tyseer Denmark's going to be the backup slot, and Liam Clifford's going to be the backup Z wide receiver. Okay, so there's your depth chart, excuse me. When you have two wide receiver sets and you go more tight end, Kyron Hudson, Trebor Peña, Devonte Ross, Liam Clifford. Okay, that leaves Kobe Howard and Tyseer Denmark probably as that next duo, third string, if you will, when they run two tight end sets or two wide receiver sets, because they might run three running backs. So I should specify that this is going to happen when they have two wide receiver sets. So that's what's going to be strategic about Penn State. How are they going to rotate the wide receivers in when they go in different personnel groupings? But that should have been expected all along. The surprise here, if you will, and people who have been following along, it shouldn't be surprising. Kobe Howard breaking into this rotation, making the top 6 as a true freshman. Now, Josiah Brown has dealt with, he has a long-term injury. It really is unfortunate. Josiah Brown was trending in the right direction, but it still is a testament to Kobe Howard, who showed up early in the spring, had a great spring camp, and has been able to stack that into now being in the rotation. He's not officially green lit, but he very well could be and should be by season, which means that they're going to plan to burn his red shirt. That's only for 2 defensive players right now, one of which could honestly see his role continue to increase. We're going to get to the defense later on in the show, but we're going to continue to go through the offense and work our way through this depth chart, picking up with tight end and offensive line coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is brought to you by Gametime. College football is back. I couldn't be more excited. All of us couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You can pull up Gametime, and in just a couple of taps, you'll see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games for as low as $25. And if you've never been to a specific venue before, this is a game changer. You get to see the seat views ahead of time. So if you've never been to Beaver Stadium, you want to go to a Penn State football game, through Gametime, you can get that point of view so you're not second guessing yourself. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. And before we get back to the podcast, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, maybe what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. And everyone who completes a survey will be entered in for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks so much for helping us out. We pick back up with the tight end room. I don't think a whole lot's changed here. For those who may have missed, some of the discussions over the summer, discussions going into training camp, Khalil Dinkins is the guy. If you think it's Luke Reynolds, he's going to emerge. I think he is going to have a breakout season. You're going to see a lot, though, of Dinkins, Reynolds, and Rappleyea rotate in. But when Penn State goes 21 personnel or 11 personnel, meaning that it's one tight end, 3 wide receivers, or 2 running backs, 1 tight end. When it's a 1 tight end formation, Khalil Dinkins on a game-winning, hey, Penn State has to have a comeback drive. Who knows who that's against? Or let's say it's an up-tempo drill, up-tempo situation at the end of the first half. You want to try to get points quickly. You have all your best players out there. Khalil Dinkins is that number 1 tight end. It's not up for dispute. I think we're going to see it immediately against Nevada. But Penn State, again, very well could just lean on that 12 personnel. They could, honestly, they could go 13 personnel. We're going to see so much creativity from Andy Kotelnicki. And I wouldn't look past Joey Schlaffer either. He's going to be that 4th tight end. The true battle is who's going to get the most reps as that 2nd tight end. Is it Luke Reynolds or is it Andrew Rappleyea? So most of you are correct to say that, oh, Luke Reynolds is in a battle here at the tight end spot for the 2nd spot. It's Khalil Dinkins. James Franklin has said this is an NFL caliber tight end. Luke Reynolds, Andrew Rappleyea. That's the order, but it's a 2A, 2B situation. I really think it's Dinkins, Reynolds, or Rappleyea, and then Schlaffer. Schlaffer should get some playing time if they're going to utilize 3 tight ends like that. Offensive line. The 5 starters, and James Franklin has not only confirmed it in his midweek press conference, but gave a hint because of the way that he ordered them in his week Nevada start of the week press conference. It was Drew Shelton, Venga Ioane, Nick Dawkins, Anthony Donko, Nolan Rucci. And why they went with that 5 is because Donko ended up being the best option at guard. If it was Cooper Cousins, if it was TJ Shanahan, then it becomes a right tackle battle. But Nolan Rucci has made progress. Anthony Donko has settled in at guard after being right tackle. This is the best 5. Objectively speaking, these guys are the best 5 offensive linemen. Cooper Cousins could be a starter in this group. TJ Shanahan. Heck, Javen Williams, we got an update on Javen Williams saying that he's been dealing with an injury lately. I think he's starting caliber as well. But Franklin really named those first 7 until I added Javen Williams here. That's the offensive line, and they could run 6, 7 offensive linemen in a formation as well. So they will play. They are going to play, whether that's in your normal setup of 5, or you expand and you really go heavy to run the football. Like I said, Andy Kotelnicki is going to get really creative. But that's the starting offensive line. You have Cooper Cousins, you have TJ Shanahan, Javen Williams should get some reps. And James Franklin, I wanted to ask him and get an idea of who else could factor in immediately at these other spots. Garrett Sexton at tackle, Owen Alicini as well. Guys that are still relatively new within the program going into their 2nd season, and they can already be relied on if they had to be. Offensive line is deep. I tabbed this group. I think they're going to win the Joe Moore Award. That's how highly I view this group. I think this is a Joe Moore Award favorite. Not just in the mix, outside looking in, favorite. Let's flip it to the other side of the line of scrimmage. This is where it gets a little intriguing because Zuriah Fisher was not seen at practice on Wednesday. And again, things could change, but James Franklin mentioned that he is dealing with bumps and bruises. He's not fully recovered from his injury. Now, no specifics, but it means that Fisher might not be available right out of the gate, and who knows what his long-term outlook is. I imagine that this is a precaution to have him for Oregon and the Big Ten slate. You don't need him for the non-conference slate. But with that being said, what does the depth chart look like? You're starting strong side defensive end, never up for debate, never up for question. Deny Dennis Sutton. Zane Durant, your first defensive tackle. Who's your second defensive tackle? The guy that is going to be your run-stopping defensive tackle, it actually could be Xavier Gilliam. Xavier Gilliam might be a surprise starter, and it kind of goes back to what I've said about Zuriah Fisher. We don't know if Alonzo Ford, he's practicing right now, but is he 110%? Is he like Cam Wallace? Is he ready to go? He might not be back up to that full game speed. I don't blame Penn State for being cautious, for being strategic and how they handle this, because if they intend to play 17 games And defensive line right now is a little more thin than they originally thought it would be. So you got to make sure Dani Dennis-Sutton is healthy the entire season. Same thing with Zane Durant, but also the guys that are dealing with those bumps and bruises, the lingering injuries, Ford and Fisher respectively. After that, here's the player that could end up breaking into the 2-deep rotation, maybe even starts with Zuriah Fisher out. That's Chaz Coleman. Chaz Coleman is that freshman player, and honestly, if we want to start the conversation early about Coleman he's a player to watch. He is a player to watch. I'll talk about that more in the final segment. But Fisher, him potentially not being available opens up this door. Chaz Coleman, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again because I want to re-emphasize it. His development has been fast-tracked. It is truly otherworldly that Coleman, who played one season of defensive end, primarily in high school, got recruited by Penn State later in that cycle, did not enroll early, came in at 215 pounds. He's already up to 240 in the span of a couple of months. He's gone through one full month of practice, and they all agree that this guy is ready to go. He has the green light. He did not have that developmental period. He didn't come in for spring camp. He didn't go through winter workouts, and he added 25 pounds. He understands the playbook, and he can make plays with only one season of high school ball under his belt at defensive end. Hey, Coleman put in the work. Dion Barnes worked with him in the development. This is a guy that could be a starter if Zuriah Fisher is absent. So he and Jalen Harvey, I think, are going to split reps. They're a 1A, 1B at this point in time at that weak side defensive end. Malachi Williams could rotate in on the other side with Dani Dennis-Sutton. Speaking of true freshman defensive ends that have a lot of upside and a lot of promise, Yvonne Kemaju is also going to factor in. So look for those 4 names after in the rotation at either defensive end side. Also, back to defensive tackle. So Xavier Gilliam's kind of that 1A, 1B with Alonzo Ford at that other defensive tackle spot. Ty Blanding, I think, is going to be the next guy up. We'll get some answers here. We didn't really, throughout the entire length of fall camp, who's going to be next at 5th and 6th defensive tackle. That's important. With a long season coming up, Owen Wafel, Liam Andrews, DeAndre Cook, Randy Adarica, could be any of those guys. I think we'll figure that out. We'll get some clarity anyway against Nevada. Linebacker, 4-2-5. Your starters right out of the gate mainly focus on the trio, Dom DeLuca and Amari Campbell, since they're lit. They're green. They're ready to go with the green dot. They have been green lit to wear the green dot, meaning that Jim Knowles' play calls are going to be fed through a microphone into their helmet comm set. Those are your 2 co-starters at Mike linebacker. Tony Rojas is going to be your starting weak side linebacker. And according to Jim Knowles, last time we heard, it's just those 3 that he trusts. Keon Wiley at that weak side linebacker spot, Dakari Nelson, LeVar Arrington II. That's how I would order them. And then at the mic, since you have a 1A, 1B with DeLuca and Campbell, Specca, Kari Jackson, who's going to step up? Any of those guys. Maybe it's an Alex Tatch as a true freshman ultimately emerges there. I would look primarily to those first 4. I think Keon Wiley, that's probably coach speak for, we need to see more from you because we do trust you as a veteran in this program, but maybe not, we don't see you where you should be at this point in time. But those are the 4 that are going to be the main contributors for Penn State this season. All right, we got the secondary to wrap up with. Secondary is loaded. And if you missed it, there was a surprise starter at that strong safety spot. We're going to talk about it next here on Locked On Nittany Lions, along with the players to watch against Nevada. And this episode is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Nittany Lion fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and you'll get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it is totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL. That is football for a limited time, 25-cent per gallon bonus. Promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. We got secondary, special teams, players to focus on in this game against Nevada. Penn State, relatively a 45-point favorite going into this one. It's going to be a blowout. But which players need to stand out here to give some more certainty long-term through the season? Okay, back to the depth chart. So Penn State at cornerback, honestly, one of the most loaded position groups overall. But there were some questions around that safety spot, and they were solidified because a relatively unknown, or a player that was flying under the radar from the outside, has settled in as the starting strong safety. At your cornerback spot, AJ Harris is going to lock down the number one receiver or just one side of the boundary. He is CB1. After that, you have again, Penn State likes to operate like this, where they have co-starters at that second boundary corner. It's either Elliott Washington or Davian Collins. We didn't really get an answer through training camp as far as who is leading. It is that close, but both of them will play. You could see all three cornerbacks on the football field at a given time because, objectively speaking, these three are your best cornerbacks overall. If they run two cornerback sets, they are going to run a true 4-2-5, meaning that lots of safeties, lots of defensive backs at any given time. Not a 4-3 with some hybrid and some flexibility and some changes here, but Penn State at the cornerback spot has those three primarily, and then Daryus Dixon, like Chaz Coleman, has the green light. He's burning his red shirt. There's just so much hype around him as a player, starting with what Jim Knowles said about being the best freshman, the best first-year player that he's ever seen in coaching college football. That is high praise. And Daryus Dixon's already going to rotate in and be a part of the rotation. Kenny Wosley got praise. So where Knowles was skeptical of the linebacker spot, he has dished out tons of praise for Daryus Dixon and Kenny Wosley, two guys that need to step up here in a 4-2-5 defense where you're going to play a lot of DBs. Zion Tracy is going to be your starter at that slot corner, Lion, and that was supposed to be a toss-up between Tracy and King Mack, but Tracy just dominated, maybe not necessarily dominated, but solidified himself that, hey, there's no question marks here, there's no competition here, this is my spot. Meaning that King Mack went over to strong safety. Oh, he'll start there, right? Veteran in college football, had a really good start to his time at Penn State before he transferred out, and now he's transferred back in. But that just opened up an opportunity for Antoine Belgrave-Shorter. Not Dejon Lane. I think most people would have thought and assumed that Dejon Lane, because of the buzz that he generated a season ago, he's the starter. Or he would have been the starter at some point in time. No, Antoine Belgrave-Shorter. Coaching matters, systems matter, and ABS has flourished in Jim Knowles' system. Like Zach Wheatley, who's going to be the starting free safety. That's not up for debate. Belgrave-Shorter is somebody that is similar to Wheatley, where he is just able to gravitate to the football. He's going to force turnovers. He's going to have interceptions. The turnover king has been Zach Wheatley in the past. This time it was Antoine Belgrave-Shorter. Belgrave-Shorter won the starting job. Now, King Mack and Dejon Lane will absolutely rotate in at that strong safety spot, but Belgrave-Shorter, being in a Jim Knowles aggressive defense that wants to force turnovers, he's going to start alongside Wheatley. So those, your first five DBs, AJ Harris, I imagine it's going to be Washington, but Collins, 1A, 1B situation. Zion Tracy, Zach Wheatley, Belgrave-Shorter. King Mack, Dejon Lane will be in it. Strong safety. Look for Vabu Toure to play a little, and Belgrave-Shorter could play free safety as well. But look for Vabu Toure to be in that rotation too. Defensive back is loaded. I feel very confident in all of the players that I name. I'm not necessarily skeptical of one or the other. Sure, of course, other guys are better than their counterparts, but all of these guys can play football and they'll be relied on this season. Rattle them off for special teams. Ryan Barker is going to be your place kicker again. Riley Thompson is going to be your punter. Tyler Dzansky is going to be your long snapper. Gabe Wosu is going to be your kickoff specialist. Kick return, little bit of a change. Kyron Allen out, King Mack in alongside Singleton. Those are your two kickoff return specialists. Punt return, Devonte Ross to start. Now he is actually dealing with bumps and bruises. Zion Tracy was progressing as a punt returner a season ago. Looks like he didn't do enough to hold on to that spot, but he would be a backup here. I don't think you can go wrong with either, but certainly there's a better option here if Devonte Ross can come in and immediately take that spot. Let's wrap up. Final score prediction for anybody that didn't know. I think Penn State absolutely annihilates Nevada. 60 brand new players on this football team for the Wolfpack. It is not an ideal start for Jeff Choate, the head coach, in his second season. Penn State, because of what they have returning, because of the ground game, that is the difference. It's on the line of scrimmage. It's those first five on the offensive line. It's Nicholas Singleton. It's Kyron Allen. Passing game is going to look brand new for Penn State, but they don't have to rely on that. They got to rely on the ground game. Expect Singleton and Kyron Allen to, I think, each have 150 yards. I think those guys are going to have monster days respectively, and Penn State will be able to put this game out of reach. 63-7 is my final score. And maybe Nevada's able to score some more points late. That's what I would look to. I think Penn State's going to dominate in the first half. If you're looking for a betting angle, I'm not afraid to give betting angles on this show. Penn State first half spread. Second half, Penn State's going to try to rotate in those backups. And then Nevada, they're not. Because they need this group to build chemistry, build rapport. They're not going to be quick to take out their starters. So late in the fourth quarter, starters are in. Penn State's third and fourth string are in. Nevada might score some points at the end and make some defensive stops. So that's where they could close the scoring margin here. I still think Penn State's going to put up a ton of points before those starters are even taken out of the game. Players to watch, focus on, I think, the likes of Quentin Martin, Ethan Grunkemeyer, guys that are in active position battles. Chaz Coleman, true freshman. Daryus Dixson, since they have the green light. Yvonne Kemaju. See what they do at linebacker. I think Keon Wiley is an important player to watch because he needs to make a statement against this out-of-conference slate. He needs to be able to prove to Jim Knowles and the defense that he can be trusted in the rotation and it's not just those three players. The transfers, Trebor Peña, Devonte Ross, Kyron Hudson at wide receiver. I know that's a lot of players to rattle off here. Let's narrow it down to three. Because I want this game to be entertaining past the fact that Penn State's going to blow out Nevada. But truly, if I had to say, these are the three players that I want to see what they can do in this game, I will go with Chaz Coleman first and foremost, since there is just so much buzz. The coaching staff is enamored with him. Chaz Coleman is that first player. That second player, I think Trebor Peña. Trebor Peña, since Devonte Ross is dealing with some bumps and bruises, needs to come back from injury a little bit, or at least make sure that he's 110%. Trebor Peña is that new, he could be the leading receiver here. Drew Aller's favorite target. That's your second player. You can go any direction here. I think Ethan Grunkemeyer, since he's going to be that first quarterback up after Drew is out for the day. Grunkemeyer, see what kind of progress he's made, because he very well might be the future starter at Penn State, future QB1. And that's where we will that's where we will end things here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Thank you so much for everybody making this off season so seamless. A perfect transition now with college football being back. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for joining me on this show. All of the conversations leading up to game one here and this entire season that we have in front of us. Penn State football is back. Thank you so much. Be a part of every conversation. If you're not an everydayer, become one. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around all of it. Penn State football, Penn State wrestling, recruiting, basketball, you name it. All right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.